The child's illness resembled a viral outbreak, akin to a zombie-like condition. Attempting to calm her son, Jess, a skilled nurse, realized his humanity was lost. Forced into a heart-wrenching decision, she had to strangle her own child and push him into the nearby swamp, watching as he sank into the murky depths. Jess had recently moved back to the old farmhouse after divorcing her unfaithful husband, aiming to start anew with her children. Eager to explore, the kids ventured toward a nearby lake with their pet dog for a fishing trip, only to discover it had transformed into a swamp. Amidst the mud and scattered animal remains, their dog darted into the swamp, prompting a risky rescue mission. Afterward, the dog's behavior turned unusually aggressive, and eventually, it vanished into the woods. Alan, devastated by the disappearance, directed his frustration at Jess, unaware that the divorce resulted from their father's infidelity. As Owen awaited the dog's return in the yard, the evening brought an eerie barking sound, revealing the dog covered in mud with glowing eyes, behaving threateningly. Jess sensed danger and cautioned Owen to stay still, but the dog attacked fiercely. Despite Jess's attempts to intervene, the dog bit Owen, refusing to release him. In desperation, Jess struck the dog with a food bowl, urging Tyler to call for emergency help to rush Owen to the hospital. Traumatized by the violent incident, Jess faced her ex-husband Patrick's blame, though he wasn't aware of the full story, leading to a heated argument outside Owen's hospital room. Thankfully, Owen eventually regained consciousness. The following day, Owen seemed to have recovered well, providing a sense of relief for Jess as she returned to her work. However, her relief was short-lived when an alarm sounded from Owen's room, numbered 520. Rushing there, she found him convulsing on the floor. Following emergency treatment, Owen stabilized temporarily, but doctors remained baffled by the underlying cause. Despite severe anemia, they ruled out rabies, suspecting a rare virus infection as the potential culprit. Owen remained unconscious for hours, perplexing the medical team. Jess, in a frantic attempt to update Patrick on the situation, contacted him. Unexpectedly, Owen suddenly awakened, fixating greedily on a bag of blood. Shockingly, he seized the bag and consumed its contents in a frenzied manner, alarming Jess. Swiftly intervening, she retrieved the bag, but the doctor, drawn by the commotion, arrived to witness Owen's condition vastly improving, no longer requiring intubation. However, Jess concealed the fact that her son craved blood, fearing that Owen might be subjected to research. In the following days, Owen refused regular food and persistently desired more blood, intensifying Jess's unease. Disturbingly, whenever Owen abstained from consuming blood, his vital signs deteriorated. In a desperate bid to sustain her son, Jess clandestinely pilfers blood bags from the hospital's blood bank, exploiting her professional position. Realizing this can't be a long-term solution, she applies for Owen to continue recovery at home and smuggles a substantial reserve of blood from the hospital. With a finite supply, Jess feels the urgency to uncover the root cause of Owen's baffling illness. Despite exhaustive tests, medical results show no abnormalities. Owen's symptoms align perfectly with acute anemia, posing a daunting challenge for Jess. As the blood bags dwindle, Owen's insatiable need for blood escalates. Recognizing a discrepancy in the blood bank, the hospital tightens security measures, making it impossible for Jess to continue her clandestine acquisitions. Facing a dire situation, Jess explores every available resource but finds no solution. Turning to small animals for their blood, she discovers that rabid blood, although limited, falls short of meeting Owen's escalating needs. Faced with no alternative, Jess resorts to self-sacrifice, cutting her palm to feed Owen her own blood. Jess devises a plan, drawing and stockpiling her blood over time, steadily depleting her own body's resources to sustain her son. Owen, rejuvenated by the blood, remains oblivious to the fact that he's consuming his mother's life force, as Jess endures the sacrifice in a heartbreaking bid to save her child. On Saturday, as the children get ready to head out with their father, Jess discreetly packs blood bags into her son's backpack, cautioning him to be cautious. Shortly after Patrick departs, Jess faints due to her dwindling blood donations reaching a critical stage, compelling her to seek an alternative solution. At Jess's hospital, a terminally ill patient expresses a desire for euthanasia. After some hesitation, Jess opts to secretly store the patient's blood for an extended period. The effects of prolonged anemia and psychological strain take a toll on Jess's mental well-being. One evening while cooking, she nearly causes a fire in the house, but Tyler's prompt action prevents a catastrophe. The following day, Jess, pushing a wheelchair, visits Helen, an elderly lady battling a terminal illness. Helen, devoid of family or friends, yearns for companionship, making her an easy target for Jess. Deceiving Helen and gaining her trust, Jess lures her into the car, with Helen cheerfully chatting throughout the journey. Helen, not having visited someone's home for an extended period, feels excited. Suddenly, Jess halts the car, feigning an issue that needs checking. She prepares an anesthetic from the trunk, subdues Helen, and confines her in the basement upon awakening. Instructing Helen to remain calm and silent, Jess removes the gag from Helen's mouth, explaining her son's dire illness and his requirement for human blood, hoping Helen will comprehend the situation. Helen adamantly refuses to comply, resulting in her mouth being gagged again. Consequently, she's confined in the basement, serving as a source of human blood. Sensing something awry, Tyler becomes suspicious when her mother locks the basement. Jess's life was already in turmoil, worsened by Owen's deteriorating condition. Owen's cravings escalated beyond refrigerated blood, now demanding warm, fresh blood, necessitating immediate consumption. The following day, Tyler's curiosity about the locked basement leads her to climb through a side window, only to discover Helen tied to a chair. Freeing Helen from the gag, Tyler is about to inquire about the situation when Jess opens the basement door. Fearing discovery, Tyler hides under a table. Jess, carrying food, notices Helen's ungagged mouth, suspecting Tyler's intrusion. She begins searching for her daughter, who, terrified, attempts to flee the basement but is apprehended by her mother. At this juncture, Jess has no choice but to come clean. She explains to her daughter the dire predicament. They can't take Owen to the hospital as it might lead to his confinement as mentally ill, locked away indefinitely. Tyler, unable to condone her mother's actions, sadly realizes there are no other viable solutions. Tyler could only console her brother, assuring him that their situation was temporary. However, an unforeseen accident occurred during a family outing with their father Patrick, who had remarried Shelley. While on the outing, Shelley accidentally cut her finger, and Owen immediately became fixated on the scent of blood, staring blankly at Shelley's bleeding finger. Only when Patrick called for Owen to retrieve the first aid kit from the trunk did Owen snap out of his trance-like state. Witnessing this, Tyler followed, intending to provide her brother with the prepared blood, but Owen complained that it wasn't fresh enough, signaling a worsening of his condition. Meanwhile, Jess had arranged a bed for Helen in an attempt to offer her comfort. Unexpectedly, Helen softened her stance and expressed a willingness to assist Owen. Touched by this gesture, Jess was taken aback when Helen unexpectedly attacked her with a pair of scissors, attempting to flee. Reacting swiftly, Jess knocked Helen unconscious with a lamp. In the midst of this, Jess heard noises outside and saw police officers approaching. Jess swiftly composed herself and went out to meet the police officers. They were investigating a missing person case, having seen Helen entering Jess's car in hospital surveillance footage. They questioned Jess, who, feigning composure, falsely claimed to have only given Helen a ride. In the basement, Helen heard the commotion and attempted to call for help, but the police departed before she could remove the gag from her mouth. Seizing the opportunity, Helen, still bound, managed to topple over and struggle free, using scissors to cut her restraints. Crawling toward the basement door, Helen forced it open with a burst of strength, escaping just as Jess's family returned home. Jess, noticing the open basement door, began a frantic search for Helen. Simultaneously, Helen hid in the nearby woods, holding her breath, watching Jess leave. However, Owen, as if sensing her presence, turned towards the darkness, spotting Helen. In a panic, Helen sprinted through the forest, only to be ensnared by a wire net, piercing her neck. Meanwhile, Owen, attracted by the scent of blood, approached the scene. Hearing the noise, Jess hurried over, only to find Owen atop the lifeless body, consuming blood, his young face smudged with it, reminiscent of a zombie. Terrified, Jess turned and rushed back to the house to stop Tyler, who was about to search for his brother. After Owen's return, Jess cleansed the blood from him and gathered tools to bury the body herself. That night, heavy rain poured down, creating a murky atmosphere. Tyler noticed her brother standing by the window, gazing at the distant woods, which reminded her of the swamp they had seen when they first arrived. Driven by curiosity, Tyler ventured towards the swamp's dead tree and noticed a sizable burnt hole in its trunk. Meanwhile, Jess, preoccupied with drawing blood to feed Owen, remained unaware of Tyler's absence. Exhausted, she eventually drifted to sleep, but was abruptly awakened by a knock on the door. Due to Owen's extended absence from school, the Child Protection Center intervened, accusing Jess of negligence and forcibly taking the children to live with their father. Before departing, Tyler tried to convey to her mother that everything seemed connected to the dead tree in the swamp. She believed that burning it could potentially save her brother. However, Jess seemed too detached and lost in her own world to fully grasp Tyler's words. Determined to take matters into her own hands, Tyler decided to burn the tree herself. Equipping herself with gasoline and a lighter from her father's workshop, she set out on this mission. Meanwhile, Owen, in dire need of blood, targeted Shelley's child. Tyler intervened just in time, indicating to her brother that she had a solution. She diverted Owen away from their father's house, and together they rode bicycles back to the swamp. Patrick, enraged upon realizing the kids were missing and believing they had stolen the bikes, rushed to Jess's house. Suddenly recalling her daughter's words, Jess hurried to the forest. Meanwhile, Owen, losing control, attacked his sister Tyler. She fiercely struggled and managed to push Owen away, leading to a fight that escalated toward the swamp. Hearing her daughter's cries, Jess rushed to the scene just as Owen was about to attack Tyler. Acting swiftly, Jess pulled Owen off and restrained him, faced with a difficult decision. Knowing she had to make a choice, Jess asked Tyler to look away, intending to end her son's life. Unexpectedly, Owen suddenly calmed down and advised his mother to get some rest. However, he soon lost consciousness again. Left with no alternative, Jess had to end her son's life by drowning him in the swamp. As it concluded, Owen's hands stretched towards the sky. Holding her sobbing daughter, Jess urged her not to disclose the events, as no one would believe her. Owen's demise was officially ruled an accident. Patrick, insistent on suing Jess for negligence and seeking custody of Tyler, left her with nothing. Devastated, Jess returned to the swamp and set the dead tree ablaze, aiming to prevent further tragedies.